Hello, and welcome to this webinar on Mastering Audit Risk Assessments, applying ISA 315 revised effectively. My name is Richard Hemmings, and my work is primarily with small and medium-sized accountancy practices, helping them with their audit function through things like file reviews, compliance reviews, methodology, and queries on complex areas, which is what brings me to be doing this webinar today on ISA 315. So ISA 315 is carved up into a number of different elements, and the three that we'll be focusing on primarily today are, first of all, understanding the entity, the second being risk assessment procedures and the final risk assessment, and the third element that I'd like to cover today is in the client's use of IT, which is actually something that has been almost newly included in the most recent revised version of ISA 315 that has been effective for a couple of years now. So just to cover a little bit of the overview as to why ISA 315 was revised in the way that it was. The overall aims of the standard are unchanged, and they are primarily to do with understanding the entity for the purpose of identifying risks of material misstatement and assessing the extent of those risks. It needed updating for a number of reasons. The previous version had been around for about 10 years. So there's been a number of developments in the audit space during that time and updates to other standards. Primarily there's been updates in technology and the techniques that auditors will use and to factor those into the standard, but also, and perhaps most importantly of all, the developments in the types of IT and things that audit clients will have in place that the auditor would need to understand in order to do an effective risk assessment. The revised standard is quite a bit longer than the previous version. There's lots of application guidance outside of the requirements which help auditors apply those requirements. And also it includes some scalability paragraphs, which we will focus on a few of those, which really help with providing guidance on the level of documentation that might be needed in the case of smaller and less complex audits. So, in a little more detail, what we're planning to cover in this webinar is three main sections. Understanding the entity, made up of two main areas really, understanding the entity and its environment, and a good slice of that relates to the entity's internal control. And we'll be focusing on a particular aspect of internal control, which is the design and implementation of key controls.